Hello, no mai, hoki mai, and welcome back to day 2 of the Financial Services Council 2020 conference, Generations. We hope you've had a relaxing break following our morning of commerce insights and expert analysis of the future of retirement and economy. It was great to see such robust discussions and debate in the regulatory space. And it's a privilege to actually have the wisdom and insights shared so close to us making our voting decisions. Knowledge is power. And wow, what an unforgettable closing session Dr. Susie Wiles delivered. She has proven the value in database decision making. There is no running away from the truth of science. And her ability to demystify the most complex subjects like microbiology is a testament to her passion for the subject. Well, it's not over yet. For the next hour, our breakout sessions are brimming with expert knowledge from right across the sector. Our curated panels of industry leaders weigh in on the power of data in insurance and the potential silver linings for the investment world in a post-COVID economy. Our Generations and Trustees sessions will look at the future and discuss what is needed for the sector to not just thrive, but to survive beyond 2020, and also analyse what the future of New Zealand's team of 5 million plus will look like. Thank you again to our sponsors for supporting these sundowner sessions. Once again, in all sessions, there's an opportunity for questions and answers, so take note and enjoy. Mā te wā.
Kia ora hui mane tātou. My name is Tāmati Rimene Sprode. I'm a reporter at TVNZ. I work for Sunday currently, and I'll be the facilitator for today's discussion. Today's discussion is, of course, the COVID-19 storm. Is there any gold at the end of the rainbow? Now, unfortunately, James Tame's doing Q&A. Oh, sorry, Jack Tame's doing Q&A. I saw Mike Hosking down at the Gucci building. I think he's buying next year's slippers. And of course, John Campbell has just been the nicest man in the world. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me for the next hour, but it's your privilege and my privilege as well that we're joined by some of New Zealand's leading experts in this area. We've got Kylie Bryant, the New Zealand Country Manager at Bravura Solutions, Paul Carter, Chief Customer Officer in Bank of New Zealand, Ashley Gane, Senior Portfolio Manager at Fisher Funds, and Brinley Hunter-Morpeth, Chief People and Culture Officer at AIA New Zealand. Tēnā tātou katoa. If you guys pick this one, you're in for a treat. Today we're going to be talking about, obviously 2020 has been a tough year for everyone. It's hit everyone hard, and businesses are successful because they can foresee some of these things coming and can be agile and adjust. But unfortunately, I don't think anyone could see this thing coming. This COVID pandemic hit us hard. It made us kind of change and adapt. And a lot of those things meant we didn't really have time to see the positives or the negatives of what was going on. One of those things was, of course, level 4 lockdown. It meant that everyone had to work from home. And that in itself had some challenges for businesses, but also for workers as well. So we don't have a lot of time. We've only got an hour, and I know we've got a lot to get through. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Kylie, I want to start with you. When level 4 hit, it meant a lot of businesses had to shut up shop and a lot of workers had to go home. Can you talk us through the changes you've seen in your workplace as people rapidly adjusted to that new norm?
Yeah, so I actually started my role mid-lockdown. So this was probably one of the most interesting and challenging life experiences that I've had to date. So starting a new job from home, 3 young kids homeschooled, and meeting everyone via Teams. So as with any situation, there's always some pros and cons to that. But Bravura is a global business, and we had done lots of work remotely. So the move to lockdown for us happened quite seamlessly. There were regular meetings put in place to ensure daily connection, and we have great digital collaboration tools. We also ran a disaster recovery test prior, just by accident, so we did feel well prepared. What we observed was that we were fast to lockdown, but very slow to return to work for a number of reasons. Prior to lockdown, Bravura was mainly work from the office. So 89% of our people were in the office 4 to 5 days per week. This was a surprise to me, as previously I'd been empowered to work a lot more flexibly and focused on outcomes. Following the lockdown, we empowered our people to pilot new ways of working, as New Zealand was the first country back to the office. The hypothesis that we were testing was we can be more productive and better serve our clients' needs through flexible working arrangements. We knew we had to put structure around our approach and improve our pilot to increase flexibility for our people on a global basis. So we implemented some ways of working agreements and empowered the teams to design what the future of work needed to look like for them. We put some guardrails around it. An example of this was a minimum of 2 days in the office, because we felt like that would be the minimum for collaboration. And from the survey, they said they preferred 1 to 3 days in the office. They had to present these ways of working agreements to everyone, and we really used the power of the group to moderate and feedback. So we've had a number of key metrics that we were tracking, but we went into lockdown too. But 47% of our people believe they are more productive while working from home and hybrid working. So our ways of working pilot is very much a work in progress. We have fortnightly retros in place, and the global business is watching us with interest. But what we have demonstrated is that we can deliver, we're adaptable, and we're resilient to change.
Thank you, Kylie. Paul, how did you guys adjust? And BNZ is a huge business. My cousin actually works for BNZ. I don't want to name any names, but he ended up going fishing most days of the week. So how did you make sure that the staff that did go home and work from home, how did you make sure that they were still hitting those productivity levels and were happy in that environment?
Okay, well, Tamati, I'm going to have to get you to send me a personal text on that fishing adventure for your cousin. It actually sounds a lot of fun. But look, good afternoon, everybody. And look, like Kylie and so many organisations, COVID has absolutely accelerated the way, where, and how we work here at BNZ. I'd have to say I'm delighted as an Aucklander, now back in level 1. I'm out in the BNZ Manukau branch, and I just haven't been able to do this very much over the last couple of months. So it's great we can get back out. But look, what workplace changes did we see? Overnight during lockdown, 95% of BNZers were working from home, supporting customers from kitchen tables, from garages, from our bedrooms. And in some respects, I look back at that time and think, that was the COVID high, as it were, as we were just keeping customers and our colleagues safe. But now as we roll forward to today, it's very clear that as a country and as businesses, we're not going back to the old ways, nor should we, as we adapt to the new normal. Today at BNZ, we've still got corporate utilisation of our corporate offices around 30%, as colleagues are embracing flexibility. There is, as we are showing here today, there is new ways of connecting. I'm told that over the last 90 days at BNZ, our Microsoft Teams platform, similar to Zoom, has hosted over 100,000 virtual meetings, 7 million chat messages. And I just think how recent history it is, that the way I used to communicate to a couple of thousand bankers in our network was speaking into a Polycon. I used to get bored of myself the way, just talking in that sense. But now we've got this two-way communication. So we're learning to embrace new technology, and we are moving work around the system in whole new ways. Customers from Kaitaia are being served by a banker in Invercargill. We're a far more flexible system now. But Tamati, if I was to say there's a personal reflection amongst all these changes, is I do think that I have come to appreciate a deeper understanding of what it means to be flexible. And certainly there are no one-size-fits-alls in this. People have responded in very different ways. Even though 87% of BNZers say they want to be flexible, we've got to be so careful of the averages. We've got the person on one hand who just loves working from home to avoid the 2-hour commute to Auckland, and then the other colleague who just cannot wait to get back into the office for that interaction, get out of the apartment. And so it's understanding needs are different, and that flexibility is not just what the individual wants, but it's a real balance between what the team needs, what customers need, what the business needs, and importance of sustaining that culture in more flexible ways. So I guess at the core of all that, what we've been practicing is those really honest conversations, open conversations about where the win-wins are, so that we can get the best out of flexibility for all those stakeholders.
Paul, I'm not going to name names, but his name is James Woodell. That's my cousin, by the way. Brindley,
Thank you.
How did you guys adjust? And we've heard from Paul. He says this will become the new norm. Do you agree with that? Will this become how we deal, how we work, leading into the future?
Absolutely. I think this has been a remarkable time. I've spent most of my career in HR trying to convince people that flexible work works. And this has been just an amazing sort of watershed time for us. So in our organisation, we talk about moving forward to work. So we're certainly not contemplating reverting back to 9 to 5 in the office. It's all about empowering our people to make the best choices to do what they need to do. And I think that both Kylie and Paul have touched on some of the key points that we observed. We adapted very quickly. We were working remotely overnight. We were able to do that. And I think there was a high. There was that sort of wartime mentality. We're in this together. We're going to make it work. And what I observed during the second lockdown was that the novelty had well and truly worn off, particularly for those of us with small children. So I think what we can see now is that our people want it to look different. They want it to be bespoke. There needs to be different options for the extroverts, for the introverts, for how we operate, how we come together, how we team, how we create culture, but also how we get through the work. So yeah, no going back. I think this is the new us, and it's really exciting, and to have that opportunity to reshape the future of work.
Tēnā koe. Ashley, how did you manage that transition over that period, and what are some of the changes that you've seen in the past couple of months?
Yes, I manage our international share portfolio, so I spend my day-to-day sort of investing globally, actually. So I haven't been on an aeroplane in quite a while, which is a bit different for me, but also nice. But I guess there are two parts of our business: the investment operations, where we have to be able to trade and transact, and it had to be seamless going from the office to home, and the whole of our organisation did work from home. And thankfully, that's the sort of thing that is so critical that we tested it so much, and we sort of knew it would work, and it did work. The thing that was a bit different was on the customer communications front, where all of a sudden we couldn't have face-to-face meetings with clients, we couldn't run our usual road shows. And if you think about markets at that time, the US share market had a 30%, the fastest ever 30% plunge. So clients were understandably frazzled. We had to communicate with them more than ever, but we didn't have the normal tools. So we actually embraced webinars for the first time, which was really interesting. We didn't know how it would go, but actually the Q&A format made them really interactive. We got a lot more people on them than we would usually get in our normal road shows, partly because you don't have to get in your car and go to a conference centre. You can do it from feel free to fire an anonymous question. So we actually found the format really good, and that's one thing we're going to keep going with.
Tēnā koe, Ashley. We've talked about how businesses have changed internally in terms of how they work, but what about externally? How has the customer experience changed since lockdown, and how has lockdown changed their experience of the product? Paul, I know in the banking sector, I'm of the generation, I use my phone to do all my banking, but I know there are others out there that might not. How have you guys had to adapt, and how have they adapted to some of the changes you've had to make?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of change and acceleration of trends that we've seen for some time, Tamati. And I guess one initial reflection is a reminder over the last 6 months what a privileged position that we play in financial services in these times as trusted advisors to business, invited into the financial lives of millions of fellow Kiwis and their families when they've been facing such extraordinary times and uncertainties. So, and I guess it's actually building on some of the points that the panelists made in the first question, that it's important to see that not every customer has their own story and we need to acknowledge that in financial services. So we see it at a region and industry level. If you're a tourism or hospitality provider in Queenstown, that is a tough adverse impact. But if you are in the DIY industry, in building, or in the IT industry, even agri, anything also which has got that digitally enabled businesses, we're seeing some businesses thriving in these times. we also see it at that individual customer level. So one of the best bits of my job is speaking, just hundreds of customers over this pandemic, and everyone has these unique stories. It's one of the reasons why, if I use an example from BNZ, why we've felt it so important when customers have called us looking for home loan relief, as an example. We said, well, that's got to be through a conversation. We want to understand your circumstance, what's driving that, and we're going to follow up with every one of these customers, because the needs will be different, the response will be different. Maybe you've called us for interest-only loan, maybe that's not the right thing. So just recognizing that the impacts on people will be unique. On the business side, we saw there was just an immediate survival mentality, keeping employees safe, cash flow viable, and kudos to the government, frankly, on the wage subsidy, which helps so many businesses quickly. But what was really pleasing to see is how quickly businesses were able to, so many of them, translate challenge into opportunity and move with speed and agility. Pivoting was the new buzzword. And, whether it's when I'm speaking to the Pakuranga Medical Centre, and they are now continuing with the video medical appointments that they started during lockdown, or the Medfin supermarket that started online delivery, the Volair bakery in the Waikato that stood up an online sales channel within 48 hours. So I take, businesses are able to adjust and see opportunity out of the crisis. I would say the two broad themes that you could generalize on from these stories are customers pivoting, particularly embracing new technology and digital. I also see it reinforces the importance of having that financial flexibility. Businesses that went in with a strong balance sheet were able to capitalize and better able to seize the day.
Pivoting and being agile, there's two words that I've heard a lot of in a lot of the stories that I've been doing at Sunday. But Kylie, Paul talked about it, how businesses change rapidly. A lot of customers changed with them. But have you seen that in your business? Have customers adapted as quickly as some of the businesses did over the time?
Yes, so with Rivera, we've got a small number of large customers that we provide technology platforms and solutions to. So previously, we would travel to client meetings all around Auckland, all around the country, and all around the globe. So one of the attractions to Rivera for me was global travel, which is no longer an option. But with most of our clients now working from home, there's little requirements for that, all of that travel. A big client of ours that we do a lot of development work for in New Zealand is out of Scotland. They would fly down and have quarterly face-to-face meetings in New Zealand with us. So the last one was in March off the fringe of COVID. So these meetings no longer occur face-to-face quarterly. But what we've found is the rapid adoption to digital has resulted in everyone, all of our colleagues from India, Poland and New Zealand and Scotland all having a shared experience rather than, half of them being in the room and the other half being online. So we've run a number of successful workshops and it's made everyone equal in that experience. We do miss out on the drinks and the goss and that interaction that you just don't get over those Zoom meetings. That's also really important because then you have a tendency to miss some of those customer opportunities as well through the customer experience. But locally, what we're seeing with our clients, like Paul said, is absolutely the acceleration, the focus on end-to-end digital experiences. We delivered a straight-through process with one of our clients where they were 40% SDP before COVID, and that accelerated over those 5 weeks to 85%. So you can just see that rapid acceleration of those digital experience and just being that technology partner. The focus at the moment is absolutely how do we enable more digital experiences for our clients. Tamati, you're on mute.
Classic. The facilitator forgot to unmute himself. I was just saying the old Friday night drinks just isn't the same on Zoom, is it? Especially if you're on mute. The ones who usually hit the Friday night drinks are our younger workers. And speaking from personal experience, I learned a lot at Friday night drinks, just soaking in probably a lot of bad habits. But it was good because I got to be around experience and soak in some positives. But Brinley, I want to come to you because lockdown has meant a lot of our younger workers have missed out on some of those opportunities to be able to soak in experience and to get some professional experience under their belt. How do you think this has impacted them?
Thanks, Timothy. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I actually canvassed some of the younger people in my team, not being able to speak on their behalf any longer, and it was interesting. So what they told me was that typically younger people are in shared accommodation, and they don't have lots of free space in their houses to set up a workstation. One of them, the flat next door, he was an avid drummer and he liked to drum during the day. So there's things like that happening. So I think from a logistics perspective, potentially they weren't as well set up as some of the older colleagues. And I do think that resilience is something that we learn over time, that we build resilience. So I think potentially some of our older workers have experience and resilience on their side, so their ability to adapt and suffer through some of that stuff was made a little bit easier. But I think your point, Tamati, is a really good one, because we've all adapted really well to these online virtual meetings, and we use MS Teams at work, and it's an amazing tool. So you can connect with people all the time. But as one of them said, and he's newer in his career, it's the observation. It's watching everyone else in the office. What do they do after the meeting? What are they saying? What are you hearing? So that's the stuff that they miss out on a little bit. So I think that there's lots to be gained by the ability to be flex and empower and have choices. But I also think that there's a flip side, there's a downside to some of that, and that's the learning, the on-the-job learning, the social interaction, all of that stuff that you miss out on. But before I go, I would say that I question whether it's as much generational as it is to do with different personality types. The introverts at AIA have loved lockdown. It's been perfect for the introverts. The extroverts are climbing the walls. So I think there's an element of that as well. It's sort of what your personality style dictates a little bit.
Can I just jump in just quickly, just to see what we saw there, Brinley? And that is beautiful. It's actually one of the things that one of the gifts of lockdown. Seeing your gorgeous little daughter come in impromptu, I guess that's one of the neat things. We've all seen a window. We've seen a window into lives that you don't see ordinarily. So that was awesome.
I did shut the door and put a do not disturb, but Mimi's not going to stop for that. No way.
Oh, that's brilliant. It just ties it all together. But Kylie, how have you seen, how has your company kind of supported people going through this? Because obviously, as Brinley was saying, we've got quite a diverse workers working for you. You've got introverts, extroverts, you've got young, you've got old, you've got people from different ethnicities. How have you guys supported your workers to adjust to these changes?
Yeah, no, we've got a hugely diverse workforce at Bravura, and I think to your point, Tamati, around Friday night drinks is sometimes where you make your best connections, and just not having that available, especially for people who are earlier on in their career. So we're taking an active opportunity to really think about how we mentor and support our younger workers. So they're still getting the same connections and availability of senior staff, even though that we're not in the office. So just really thinking about what systems we want in place and how we ensure they can keep meeting the right people to get the right support they need. And just building on that, I'm a huge extrovert, so you know it's good for the introverts to stay home. I'm an extrovert. I love connecting with people. There's nothing better for me than sitting around a whiteboard and having a session. So you know, lockdown 1 was fine. Lockdown 2 was a real struggle for me, and so I'm so pleased to be back to the office this week. For Alert Level 1, we had all of New Zealand session earlier on today, and just seeing the people, the hum and the buzz around the office again was really, really brilliant.
Bring on Friday night drinks. Let's move on now to the topic of digital acceleration. There's no doubt that the events of 2020 have led to the rapid acceleration of many organisations' digital strategies. Ashley, you talked before about how you guys had to change your model. You started doing webinars. Can you give us some kind of insights into global trends and how they will influence New Zealand and New Zealand businesses when it comes to that digital take-up?
Yeah, and I think digital acceleration again is a buzzword, but there's almost always a benefit from adopting new technology, or it wouldn't be invented. It's usually more effective and productivity enhancing. And the reality is, with it's just hard for some big businesses, particularly, to implement new things, and it's obviously costly and it takes time. So you need a catalyst, and I guess what COVID was a catalyst for a lot of this change, because the cost of not adapting all of a sudden became really, really high, and the benefit of adapting was also pretty significant. And I guess you can think about that not just in financial services, but in retail. If you didn't stand up an e-commerce capability pretty quickly, you're going to have, you know, in New York, you might have 6 months worth of sales just disappear for your business. Likewise, businesses all of a sudden had a real imperative to move to the cloud or adopt some of these collaboration tools like Teams or Slack that Paul mentioned earlier. So all of a sudden you had this real incentive, and it's only now that we're starting to try some of these tools that we're actually starting to see some of the use cases for them and actually how they do benefit clients. And I think the innovation really starts now. It's not when these tools were first invented. It's now that we're using them and trialing them. And I guess one interesting example for us of one of these webinars that we did, and we were doing basically 2 a week for the first couple of months there to sort of help clients through that period, and would have a few hundred on each. One of our clients sent us a picture of them on the couch, and it was 2 parents and their 2 teenagers sitting there watching the webinar on their TV. And interestingly, we hadn't really thought about that before. Usually at our roadshows, we get sort of older people that leave the house and come and join our roadshow, but they were able to use it as an opportunity not only to learn about what we're doing with their investments, but also to teach their kids something about finance as well. So it was just a really interesting use case that we hadn't thought of, and now we're thinking about, can we actually for younger people.
Well, I want to come to you now. This is not on our script. This one's a bit of a curveball for you. You're such a good answer of the questions. But do you think New Zealanders are slow to pick up on technologies and use them to the best of their abilities?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I mean, this now I'm going completely off the script. You don't need to look so far. We're going to have an America's Cup next year. Not sure it'll be slightly different, but look, who else on this planet figured out that we need some cyclists underneath when we've got a yacht, and figure out that's a better way to do things. And so I think we have demonstrated over and again, and I should say, if the accent hasn't betrayed me already, I'm originally from Australia, and I just I'm proud to be in this country and see the ingenuity over and over again of what we can do, right? That with scarce resource, often that lesson of its scarcity of resource, it actually forces ingenuity. Don't have the budgets of some American yacht. Well, you know what? We will force out. We can get this and do it better because we've got less resource. And I think that's what the stories I told earlier of businesses and people adapting. I'm not saying change is easy, because, from the BNZ perspective, we in the middle of lockdown, people had to adjust their banking habits. Limited branches open around the country. We saw all the trends accelerate, cash usage down, and, but we've had people adapt. I'll give you a really neat story. So one of the things that we did was in lockdown, introduce a dedicated line to support people over 70 years of age who were otherwise struggling to get their banking done. And it was amazing what was going on. There's some of those preconceived ideas that if you're an older member of the community, maybe that whole digital and your phone, banking wasn't going to work for you. Well, we proved it wrong, and by providing the right support, dedicated support, priority, if you called, you get answered fast with people who just took the time to talk through how to do your banking online or in phone banking. It was life-changing for members of our community, and there's been some great new learnings from that for us as a business, but I know it's been life-changing for many of those individuals. So look, I think there's plenty of proof points of New Zealanders being innovative. I think this is the opportunity ahead of us. If I go macro, productivity in this country needs to improve, and a way to do it is by embracing technology, and that will be good for all of us.
Thank you, Paul. I want to pick on you here. Wallabies versus All Blacks this weekend. Who's going to win the game?
Yeah, well, see, I come from the southern states, and so of Melbourne, and my Aussie rules football team is also playing in the finals. But because my kids are all walking around in All Blacks jerseys now, but secretly it is still the Wallabies.
There's the right answer. There's the right answer. I mean, we're talking a lot about how we're going to change and the need for change, and the challenges that brings. How do we support our people, our workers through this change? It's obviously uncertainty breeds kind of anxieties, and we need to be putting in place strategies to support our workers through this. But looking forward, looking into a crystal ball here, Brynley, I mean, what are some of the things that people will be wanting or demanding operating in a post-COVID-19 world?
I think in a post-COVID-19 world, what we tend to miss out on a little bit is the connection, and the ability to spot the signs and see what's going on for people. When you're eyeballing someone, you see their reactions and you understand what's going on for them a little bit more. So, what the focus has been for us at AIA during lockdown and post-lockdown is really upskilling managers in terms of mental health awareness, making sure that that they understand how to coach and support their team members remotely. What we also know is that people want to have choice. They want to have flexibility, but they also want that support. So it's really important to make sure that everyone understands the frequency that meetings need to happen. You can't just have people that are isolating themselves and not sort of touching base and connecting in. And so I think those sorts of, we have team agreements that we've asked people to put together, so we understand for each team how often they connect, what that looks like. Managers are having regular check-ins with their people on an ongoing basis. But I do think that the problem to solve in a post-COVID-19 world is how you keep culture alive, how you continue to connect and collaborate and celebrate in a remote environment, or an environment where you don't have everyone in the office at the same time.
Kylie, how do you see this play? How do you see people working in a post-COVID world, in a post-COVID environment? What do you think that they'll be demanding in terms of support for mental health, as Brynley talked about, but just the support in place in the workplace? What do you think they'll be demanding?
Yeah, so we know that the way forward is a hybrid approach to work, and that's what they've demanded, and that's what we need to deliver on. We know they want to be more flexible. It needs to be more human, and it needs to be more intuitive ways of working. I've recently been talking to Unispace as we look not only what work looks like, but what our environment should look like. And they have sort of highlighted some key drivers around that. The office space is great for problem solving, innovation, and that community connection, which Brynley was talking about. and the home space is good for focused learning, wellness, and flexibility. Obviously, the office utilisation is reducing, like Paul spoke about as well. So, you know, we're having a really good look at what we need for our future requirements now. I think one of the challenges, like you speak about, is the well-being of our people. The challenges that we've heard about is the blurring of work and home life. So, and especially in a global business, what you find is you start in the morning and you're on global calls right through the night. And so, you know, you've got to actively manage your day, your time, and your energy to ensure you don't get burnout. So what we're focusing on now this week is we're focusing on October as Mental Health Month. We've had a number of sessions for our people and, you know, really steering into the are you okay?
Paul, how do you guys deal with burnout and that blurring of work, home life balance? Is it more fishing trips?
maybe I should. I'm noting that. I think maybe I could be doing a few more myself. I haven't had much luck with the fishing trips. I'm just maybe in the wrong spots. I totally agree with what Brinley and Kylie have just said. I reflect on the last 6 months when we, what I'll call the focus moving from wellness perspective, moving from a physical safety, you know, keep yourself, PPE, all that, don't catch COVID mindset, to now wellness of anxiety, stress, uncertainty. That, like others, that's where our set's been. It's one of the reasons we did introduce 6 weeks of annual leave this year. It's partly recognizing that people need a break. And it's really important. It's hard, you know, the boundaries, as people said, between work and home life got blurred. We've all struggled with it. I haven't got the balance right. But that, you know, so take proper breaks, take proper time to refresh, recharge. So important. It is embracing these new ways of working, not only that flexibility, but I do think, you know, how we spread the load better. I mean, it's a big focus for us. You know, we can actually spread the load across, in my world, across a range, a much greater group of people. So the workload doesn't always just flatten peaks and troughs, or another word of saying it. And I just think the role of leaders in this just becomes so important. Training our leaders to be attuned to the warning signs when something is not quite right. We just can't rely that people that comes out of the box. We've got to invest in that with our leaders. We use a group called Benny Star that helps in this regard, and we roll that training out so we can help be there. And as others have said, just the check-in and those disciplines, particularly in a remote environment, just becomes even more important.
Ashley, is that something that your company is doing as well? Is it keeping in touch with workers and making sure that they're in the right headspace to be at work, firstly, but to be working as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one good thing about lockdown is it did really it did force you as a manager and for people to reach out to their teammates and to see how they're going a lot more proactively than if you're perhaps all sitting in the office together and seeing how everyone's doing. You know, the first thing you asked when you're on a call was, are you able to chat, or are your kids running around? And actually talking about people's personal lives and what was going on and finding times that are going to work was actually really important. So you start to bring more of your personality and yourself to work, and you start to sort of balance all of that up, and that was really great. And I think you know, one thing we've always been quite big on encouraging our people to get out during the day at work and go do some exercise. So we're lucky to be based here in Auckland near Takapuna Beach, so people go out for a run or a swim occasionally, but it's also sort of beyond that now. It's now thinking about I was going to say, we also had a lot of people in the office most of the time. We never really tried the working from home, and having done that now, it's been extremely effective. We worked well together. It's built up a lot of trust, and as a result, people are choosing how they want to work, and a lot of people in my team are choosing to work from home sort of 2 or 3 days a week. So that is great. It provides more balance. You know, you can get up in the morning, you can avoid the commute, so you can drop the kids off at school, still get a full day's work in, maybe get some exercise in, and be at home in time for dinner. So all that stuff are really positive developments, and everyone's sort of demonstrated that we can do that and still be really productive. So that's great.
Tēnā tātou. Now, at the start of at the start of this discussion, the question that was posed was, we've gone through this COVID-19 storm. Is there any gold at the end of the rainbow? Now, we've talked a lot about the changes, both internally, externally, over the last kind of 20, almost 40 minutes now. The biggest question is, have we learned anything over the last 6 months? Have we learned anything, both good and bad? Do you think that, the last 6 months has taught us that it is possible to find that right line between work and your personal life? Paul, what do you think?
I think we've learned so much. I'm here in a branch today. People today are catching up with their colleagues that they're actually seeing for the first time in months in person, and they're loving it. And this is going on in workplaces all over Auckland. But people have got their organizational learnings, their personal learnings at this about, I think about myself, when I've got a meeting a day of back-to-back of meetings, well, why wouldn't I just do that from home? Actually, a lot more productive to do it that way. But then, when I'm out, don't block it up with meetings. Be accessible, be available for that corridor conversation, for that little snippet of things, or that chemistry in a team that's just so important. So, and every team will be different, as I said. And so I think just empowering people to figure out what is right for them, the balance of team, the individual, what's right for customers. And I think that's a great way in which we're going to come out of this stronger together and take great learnings with us forward.
Just on Paul's point, he's going to be taking meetings from home all the time now, so he won't be coming into the office as much. How is that going to impact, CBDs, the big CBDs, and then how's that also going to affect our regional towns and centres around New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think once people find their next equilibrium, we'll understand more of the impact on the CBDs. But I really like the talk of the Zoom towns on the fringe of Auckland. This is going to provide our people with even more flexibility. It's going to make housing affordable. One of my team members is looking at purchasing a place in Ruakaka now, and then just coming in on the couple of days a week that they need to connect in the office. So this is going to start to put more money into the economy of the wider Auckland and New Zealand Inc., which is super exciting and really great. I think the hybrid ways of working is also going to provide us with more of a global talent pool, which, sort of it's always been there, but we haven't really been able to take advantage of it as much before. And then as a working mum, I see the benefits of flexibility to be more involved with my kids' activities generally day to day. And I think if you look at all the digital technology and these trends, they were already there, but they've just been significantly accelerated. So the quote McKinsey uses, it was from 5 years into 8 weeks, some of these digital trends. And we had all this technology, but we weren't just using it in this way. And so, as with anything, necessity is the mother of adoption, isn't it? So when you have to do it, it can be done.
Ashley, what do you think some of the biggest learnings we've had? We've come through COVID. What are some of the biggest learnings you've had over the last 6 months?
I think it's that one I touched on earlier, that sort of everyone's different and everyone adapted in a different way, and it's not a one size fits all. So the learnings haven't been that we should all work from home all the time or we should all be in the office all the time. It's that you need to find the right balance for everyone. And it's been really great that we've had a trial of that. And I know that some people were just keen to get back to the office 5 days a week, and others were keen to spend more time working at home. And so I think it's great. We've sort of developed the trust to build the flexibility and allow people to work the way that they want to work. So I think that's one really great learning. I think it is back to another point that was mentioned earlier on the property front. There's always a talk about whether it will empty out CBDs and that sort of thing. But one thing we found with us is because people were working at home, they found certain tasks they need to do in a collaborative way, other tasks they need a bit more quiet. So we're actually looking at our office infrastructure at the moment and saying, can we, currently we're largely open plan, and that isn't ideal for all types of work. So can we create some breakout areas, some areas for doing collaboration, and then some quiet work zones as well, so that in the office you can try and create the environment of working from home and also create an environment where collaboration works as well. So actually we might actually need more space.
I guess the idea of the office just changes then, right, Ashley? It's just a different kind of outlook to what an office space is.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. How do we apply these learnings going forward? How do we make sure we actually implement a lot of these things going forward?
I think it's just, we just do it, right? Like, I mean, for me, the gold in COVID is that all roles can flex, and we've absolutely demonstrated that now. If I had said to people, I've been saying to people, hey, all roles flex, CEO, you know, and everyone's like, no. And we did it. And we know that flexibility underpins diverse and inclusive working environments. So we have just got this wonderful opportunity to create working environments that are diverse, they are inclusive. People can bring their whole selves to work and find much more joy in being at work. Like, I was in the office on Tuesday, and the P&C team, generally we all come in on Tuesday. That was the first time we'd all been together. People were hugging, they were so excited to see each other. We're not like that normally, you know. Normally you've had 40 minutes in traffic and you're over it before you've started. So there's a real joy that can be found now in the way that we experience the traditional workplace, and the way that we experience home life. And being home for netball practice on a Monday night's been amazing for me. I never got to do stuff like that. So, but how do we do it? We demonstrate the will and the commitment, and we make it happen. And that's what AIA is doing. And that sounds like what all the other organisations that are represented on this panel today are doing too. So we make it happen, and we be brave, and we make those choices.
Kia ora, Brynley. I wish you would come talk to my bosses at TVNZ, because we're not doing it. That's another conversation. We've come to the end of our Q&A, but we do have some questions that have come through from some of the people watching. One of them, which is for everyone here, I want to get you all on your opinions on this. Looking forward, what is the biggest challenge for each of you, rather than the organisations that you represent? What is the biggest challenge for each of you adapting in your roles to meet both customer and staff needs? Paul, can we start with you?
Oh, what a big and great question. I think focus, clearing out the noise. I think the biggest challenge is clearing out the noise and focusing on a few of those things that really matter is probably the way I'd summarize it. And there's a lot of uncertainty, there's an environment that's a lot of change, all of us in our roles, boy, you think about all the things you can be doing, and there'll always be the great new innovation over here. And you just, at the end of the day though, you need to prioritize and help your people focus on the few things that are going to really matter. You need to form some beliefs about where the world's going, not trying to chase all of them. There are some big themes. We talked about digitization, and then just focus. And there's the only other clue for us as leaders in business is the more that we find mechanisms to truly listen to our customers and to our colleagues, our people, and embed that in the way we are innovating and focusing on those few things, I think we'd be on the right path. So there you go. Focus and priority based on the feedback from customers and your teammates.
Ashley, what about you, mate? Looking forward, what's the biggest challenge for you adapting in your role to meet both customer and staff needs?
I think that the big challenge, particularly on the staffing front, is particularly as we all start adopting more flexible sort of working arrangements, is just having to be extremely proactive and to keep in touch with your team. You might just be passing each other 1 or 2 days a week and just making sure you have those regular catch-ups, particularly the one-on-ones and just the casual chats, just to check in with people and see how they're going. I think that there is a risk, I guess, that some of that could be lost, and that's going to require everyone to be a lot more, I think, proactive in the way they communicate, particularly internally, but also that applies, I think, to customers as well.
We've got another one here, and I'll throw this one at you, Brinley. How do you keep the feeling of appreciation as we come back to work together alive and thriving at work?
So keep the feeling of appreciation for being at work alive as we come back. Well, that's the trick, isn't it? And I think you achieve that through a hybrid approach by making home great. And then after you've been in the office for a few days, or after you've been at home for a few days, you want to come to the office, and that's great. And it's the things that you do in the office that are interesting and energizing. I don't know about others, but if I've had a whole day of Teams meetings, I'm pretty drained. It's quite hard concentrating, looking at all the squares. But what I find super energizing is being around a whiteboard and brainstorming and talking about different ideas. So it's making sure that the time spent in the office is really well utilized and full of activities that re-energize and provide you with the inputs that you need to then go home and be productive. So I think it's just, don't keep it same, mix it up, make it different, have the shared lunches, make being at work fun. It's, you put your lippy on, get out of your yoga pants and off you go and have a bit of, have a wine after work, I think that's how we do it.
Kylie, do you agree with that? Put on the tights. I mean, I don't put on the lippy, but I'll chuck on a pair of tights and have a wine if that's key to it. But how do we keep that feeling of appreciation?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really focused on that as a leads team at the moment. There's a lot of talk about culture and morale and, really getting people in and helping them feel engaged to being at work. So like Brinley said, today we had our all of Keeping New Zealand Updated session. We've got a shared lunch in a couple of weeks. We're reinstating wines on Friday, so Friday night drinks. So just really feeling like it is a place of collaboration, a place of energy, a place that people want to come, and a place that is engaging. And absolutely, I always look forward to putting on my lippy and getting out of my slippers and heading in.
I'm sure Paul does too. This one's for you, Ash. Has the pandemic changed how you think about assessing companies as investment opportunities?
I think investment really is a long-term thing, and I don't think the sort of the basic principles behind what we sort of do and what we're looking for in companies or investments has really changed. But it really has created winners and losers, and some of that isn't necessarily the company's own doing. Some of it's just they might have been in the right place. Amazon would be a great example of that. But what we have noticed, one thing that does separate businesses is actually some of the stuff we've been talking about today is how companies adapt. So we've had a really good case study here of how have companies adapted to this crisis, and some companies have done it a lot better than others, and that's been a really interesting thing to look at and talk to management teams just to see what they're doing in response to this. And a good example, a company we invest in what is Adidas, and it could have been a complete disaster for them with stores all over the world and lockdowns, but by being ready with e-commerce and sort of pivoting towards their e-commerce strategy, they've actually been able to clear out a lot of excess stock pretty quickly, and they actually make a lot more money selling online than they do through physical stores. So it hasn't been that bad. And another great one is Starbucks, who actually, quite amazing in the US, a large percentage of their sales go through drive-through, which you wouldn't think about, but people love driving through in their big cars in the US. But drive-through and also their mobile app to pick up coffees has been super successful as well. So seeing companies move really quickly has actually been a really interesting point for us, and the ones that have been a bit slower to move are ones that we might not consider in the future.
All right, team, this is I've got to be really honest here. I don't understand this question at all. So if you feel up to it, you go ahead and answer it. How can providers be better prepared at developing scalable digital advice solutions when a lot of processes today still rely on individual conversations to evaluate each customer's circumstances when giving advice?
Yeah, I can probably answer that.
Yeah, go Kylie.
Yeah, we've just launched. It must be one for me actually. We've just launched River Advice, which is a omni-channel digital advice solution at the conference. So we had Andrew Whelan and Martin Gould speaking on it yesterday. So this is absolutely starts with a customer journey. It goes into digital advice, and if required, can go on to an advisor. So that is personalised, individualised, and provides a person with an outcome of a statement of work. So please contact me if you want any more details on that. Fantastic customer experience and leading to great outcomes for customers.
I feel like that was a setup. Anyone else want to have a go at that one? Anyone else want to have a go at that one? I feel like that one was specifically for Kylie. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I want to ask you some personal questions. Brinley, what was the most challenging for you? What was the most challenging time over that lockdown, well, both lockdown period, but over the last 6 months? What was the most challenging thing for you?
Without a doubt, it was the homeschooling. I'm absolutely 100% fine working from home, and I'm an ambivert. So I've got an introverted tendency. So the homeschooling killed me, and I just had to get to the point where I just let it go. I let it go, and I did put on Frozen, and I just said to the girls, just do what you can, but I can't be sewing up things and preparing meals with you and doing all these activities that they've been set. So yeah, that was the hardest bit for me. But yeah, the girls didn't learn a lot over that time.
And Paul, for you, what was the silver lining? Was it getting to watch Frozen?
Frozen. We did watch Frozen 2.
No, but in all seriousness,
not as good as Frozen 1 was.
Preach. But what was the silver lining for you?
It was the family time, actually.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and what a privilege that we did watch more movies together. Netflix would have benefited from the Carter family, and so there I was at home a lot from a room, oftentimes bunkered down, but then I was able to then just emerge at lunchtime or breaks and just be part of the flow and like, oh, young Tom, what's going on with this homework or lack thereof. And even there was attempts at recommencing the piano lessons, or kids doing more of the piano. My beautiful wife even started to implement sort of regimes of the fitness. Come on, let's go and do boot camp together. So there's some really neat things, and that will be special memories as a family. Then I'm conscious that everyone gets back to I'll call it more routine, but there's some real nuggets there that I'd like us to hold on to, and will be always special times.
Finally, Ashley, for you, mate, what was the biggest kind of kick up the bum for New Zealand? What's the thing that kind of, obviously COVID made us realise it, but for you, what's the biggest kick up the bum for us?
Well, that's an extremely tough question there. I think back to maybe what I found challenging was the homeschooling as well. I've got 3 boys, and trying to control them and keep them on task was pretty hard. But I also found out I was teaching them maths. So I'm the designated maths teacher in the house, and I taught them everything wrong apparently. So long division and multiplication. They've gone back to school and apparently they've learned it all wrong. So yeah, that's it.
So the biggest kick up the bum was actually you need to relearn maths?
I think that's it, yeah.
And for you, Kylie, just to wrap it up, what was your biggest kind of learning coming out of lockdown?
I think probably how much I really enjoy the office and just how much I enjoy that connection time And once again, homeschooling 3 young kids is not my forte either. So I'm in there with the kids will have a better term this term.
Yeah.
And that is probably the best contraception there is out there. You're being locked at home with screaming kids. Not for me, not right now, thank you. But just to wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. I think, I hope I learned a lot, and I hope that those people at home or at work watching learned a lot too. Kylie, Paul, Ashley, Brinley, thank you so much. And yeah, that's about it from here. I just want to end on a whakatauki, a Māori proverb. Huri te ao, huri te tikanga. It means as the world changes, so must we. And I think that kind of sums up what everyone's gone through in the last 6 months, but I think businesses especially. So just leave it on that. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you.
Do we just wrap up here? What happens?
What a fantastic, engaging audience you've all been. It's hard not to get involved with the discussion with so many great speakers sharing their wisdom on such important topics for the sector. We hope that you've found the day as interesting and as valuable as we have. As we bring day 2 to a close, take time to absorb the knowledge from today and rest up for another huge day tomorrow. This conference is going to end on a high note. We look forward to seeing you back here rested and rejuvenated for what looks to be a stellar cast of speakers and panellists. Bring your breakfast, grab a coffee and sit tight. Once again, if you have any questions about the event, please email events@fsc.org.nz and the events team will be in touch. I'm Kirsten Young, Regional Manager, Astron Life, and I've been your MC for day 2. I've thoroughly enjoyed sharing the show with you today, and I look forward to joining the virtual audience tomorrow. Thank you to the team here in the studio, and have a good night. E noho rā.